Okay, hello everyone, welcome to today's episode. Just a quick announcement that this episode most likely will be, I don't know, will be maybe like the last live, and then the rest will be for members because the members are increasing. But anyways, I'll continue. I wanted to speak about when the collective blind spot is cared for. I feel this is an important concept, and really we as a human species are like a bunch of creatures on a rock in the middle of nowhere designing something. And we know, as far as history has reminded us, that just like how history is written by winners, in some sense there is so much of knowledge and what actually existed gone when it comes to human history. That means, imagine there was like like a gaming cafe, and imagine that gaming cafe is conquered by some ruthless ruler of a country, right? And then the concept of the whole gaming cafe or whatever is like gone. Do you know? That means there was no backup system for that which worked while it was here. We are all energy. This energy cannot be created or destroyed. It transforms. As it transforms, the human psychology cultivates memory. Memory is like the last backup system of what worked in the past, which we don't have access in the present. You know, if I don't know how many people listening to this are writers, listening to these lectures I do, but if you were a writer, you will notice something fascinating about writing and how it's such an important technology, in the sense that when a person writes a sentence down, it's kind of like a time machine. You bring it outside of time. That means if an idea's progression in time was that the person was, let's say, walking to the grocery store, the idea came to them, it was there for like, I don't know, let's say 30 seconds, they were pondering on it, and it was an important idea. And then let's say the idea's natural kind of progression in the human psyche is to come and go. But if we write something down, we have in some sense allowed that idea to step out of its natural time. Its natural cycle, and it's kind of like concepts that are written down, and all the scribes in history, they have actually been immortalizing perception from the inner ones. So writing was a way, an incredible backup system for human experience to be documented, or how human beings live to be documented. So I would say history is like an example of a great collective backup system. Where if suddenly somebody forgets like what's going on, they go read the history books and they're like, all right, that's the story we're all going by. So we can say the human being, strangely designed to be evolved through, it's designed to, how would I say, it's evolved to a design. Here's, okay, let me see how I can say. We were an evolutionary animal. We were unconscious. We had no clue that we were being an animal. We had no clue the world was here. Things were automatically moving. Eventually, something happened that made the creature conscious to itself. The moment we became conscious of ourselves, that changed the game. That changed the game of organisms. You know, as an organism, it wasn't just enough that we went forward in a physical reality. We started having sideline perceptions of the physical reality. What that means is I could totally see it, how the early human beings, the moment their inner realms was activating, it was kind of like probably freaking them out, right? Imagine like a human being doesn't know, in the evolutionary scheme of things, that the human being at some point in history had no clue what memory is, right? So it would have been equivalent to time travel, right? So imagine somebody, yesterday they were treated bad, and then tomorrow it's like, you know, it's become tomorrow and they're living good and there's nothing bad, but suddenly the imagery of the day before and the chaos that the mind has been exposed to kind of tries to project in the present moment. And so there was the suggestion that, for example, the Mayans and the Aztecs, that they had these sacrificial practices, you know. These sacrificial practices were kind of attributed to how they could not discriminate between what was a thought and what was reality back in the day. That means, imagine you're an Aztec and you suddenly, you know, you dislike someone, and suddenly the mind projects a thought like, get rid of that person, right? And so the Aztec mind, let's say the early mind, couldn't tell apart what was self-positioned into the moment and what was world positioned into the moment. And of course, everything is the position of the world, really. You know, we exist to ourselves, but if you ask the universe, do human beings exist? It's like, buddy, I don't know my atomic, like how many, you know, you know, in the most minuscule, like what the components are, right? The way reality works is that simpler dimensions, they join to become a complex dimension. The complex dimension treats itself simple, so it has room to grow. So literally what the cycle is in life is that you start off simple, things become complex. That complexity becomes part of a new simplicity the moment there's a higher spectrum. You know, imagine somebody playing billiard, and for the first time, and the billiard player, let's say the newbie, is like, all right, I'm gonna just practice hitting the ball, you know, hitting the ball and having that hit another ball, right? But then after the person masters that, they started simple, they trained, now they can hit any ball on the pool table, okay, with the white ball, and so they reach a certain point where it's like simplicity became complexity, checkpoint. Right? Now what happens is that complexity has to appear as another simplicity of a greater complexity. And so what that means is, after the person's mastered a simple technique, they go to more harder techniques and more complex techniques. And the greatest martial artists, or any sort of artist, or any sort of art form or style, those people who have the greatest style, they are as if on a, you know how it is, it's like they're in a league of their own. I have been inspired by people like this on this planet. You know, I remember my father would play chess with me when I was young. And I remember I would always lose. And I would obsessively play with him so much, you know, because the concept of just not being able to overcome something burdens one, right? And so I remember I played to a point where I experienced the day, this was when I was maybe like 11, 12, where one day my dad kind of let me win, or at the same time it was like a subtle mistake from his part in the chess game. And my father's a really good chess player. And so I reached a point where what was not easy not only became easy, greater dimensions beyond whatever my expectation of success was arose, right? This is the hard thing, that some people are like, what is success, man? Is it when we do something and then look back and feel like we're successful? I would say success is attempting the greatest possibility in the moment. That's it. You know, that means if you're someone, let's say in a developing country, and you're just trying to survive, if you find a great strategy to survive, like, that is in some sense success. In some poverty-stricken countries, they found a way to use, I don't know, bleach and some sort of other chemical to make some sort of glowing lamp that is not dependent on, for example, what do you call it? Electric light, you know? So that to me is like success, right? Anytime we see that something can progress and not forget that it is in a universe that is growing, it's as if, what greater success can we want? You know, it's as if, let's say, an individual became successful in a collective system. It's like, so freaking what, you know? The way human beings are living now is that before they enter the grave, they're going to be like, I succeeded, but wait a minute, is my species going to fail, right? We haven't attained that sort of collective appreciation of the elegance of our not only geometrical, but like our existential design, you know? You know, I found it strange in my youth, you know, that a person's family is limited to just those people around them. But if extraterrestrials landed, and let's say there was some sort of extraterrestrial war, and in that extraterrestrial war, like after like 10 years the person saw another human being, they would literally feel they have seen a family member, right? So it's just because we're taking it for granted, our existential position, that it's easy for us to be cruel and ignorant. You know, and it depends on what sort of enemy a person fights, right? For me, there was a time in my youth where I had physical enemies. That means people who I had problems with at school, I declared them as my enemies, and I would fight with them. And later on, I realized it's such a stupid idea to have an enemy. You know, it's as if, like, for free creating an obstacle for yourself. It's like distracting progress when we think that there's an enemy to fight, because we're ultimately creatures going by. Now, of course, in the political scene, it becomes a different discussion, because politics is where you can say it's like a jungle, but it's a jungle where the claws and the teeth have transformed into a different sort of manner, right? That means viciousness, it's still going to be around for some time. You know, human beings are going to do the unnecessary, because emotions don't need logic. You know, there's a great speaker, I personally consider him an advanced communicator, by the name of Tony Robbins. And you know, guys, I just noticed people with the last name Robbins have brought a lot of joy to humanity, you know? Or actually not Robin, just the name Robin, you know. But anyways, guys, I was watching this video. Tony Robbins was explaining something incredible. He was saying that people buy emotions, people buy feelings, they don't, and not objects. And this was such a life-transforming perception for me, right? Because Tony Robbins, the whole video was saying that people want something that adds to the significance. That means when it comes to trying to increase our significance to ourselves, not to anyone else, to ourselves, we want to feel significant. People invest a lot in that. And so imagine now 8 billion human beings, you know, they wake up one morning and it's as if all their jobs has become to serve civilization. Imagine all the employers of all companies on the planet, you know. they literally go to their crew. To me, even though there's special nomenclature and a specific way that we need to treat the economical sector and speak about business ideology, but to me, businesses are starships. They're just starships that don't move, like physically don't move. And so in the starship, there's a commander and there's crew and whatnot. And imagine one day the commanders of all business activities on the planet, they're like, all right, guys, the time has come. For the first time, the human species is attempting to build an advanced civilization, and the highest quality of work is being requested by the whole civilization. That means our physiological survival has caused our economical sector to have shitty products. Excuse my language, but like someone has to say. The species, it deserves high quality, and high quality means we become more patient, and companies become more patient, and they give a great product, rather than in some sense a weak product. That means, let's say there's, just like we have alpha psychology and beta psychology, when it comes to observing animal psychology, we can say that there's also alpha products and kind of like beta products that are weak in their character, in their design, and products that are strong in their design. For example, Steve Jobs made an incredible product. He pretty much made a product ahead of its time. And so that product, during a market crash, there was there was a recession. What was the year? 2008? There was some sort of economical downfall, and Steve Jobs, instead of lowering the price of his product, he increased the price of his product. Sorry, he didn't increase the price of his product. He kept the price of his product the same, because his product was meeting the human need of significance, right? We all need to feel significant, or we feel we don't exist to anyone other than ourselves. Right? Like, why am I giving this podcast, right? Because I was like, okay, my whole life is happening to me in my inner realms, and now there's a biological body, there's the internet, there's a whole podcasting opportunity, right? And so it's as if, why just let the mind that in some sense throughout the day just experiences something, it's like now we can share it. So that's like the significance for it. Oh my God, welcome everyone. There's the chat section's booming. Alright, welcome guys. I'm reading the chat section. Don Fisher says, how does your member program work? How do we get your live videos? So guys, I've dedicated a video to this, but if I was to explain it very simply, I'm this person who's just starting this online project, right? And really in life, as the system gets bigger, actually more minds come and get involved in the system, right? In a project or something, right? So I thought about how can I engage the audience, at the same time do my own thing here. And my strategy was I'm like, there's so many different types of people, and my objective is, to be honest, at the end, when I finish these 10,000 talks, these 10,000 talks are going to be a sort of universal service for me, a sort of universal community service, in the sense that I am giving something to existence before I stop existing, pretty much. But the membership, the way it works is that I pretty much went to YouTube and looked at how you can set it up. And most people set it up where it's like, level 1, get access to these perks. Level 2, get access to these perks. Level 3, get access to this incredible, And so the issue with that was, I was like, what is this? This is going to be like a lot of work. So I thought of kind of pretty much everybody gets the same access, and the prices that people can choose for the membership vary from $0.99 to max $149.99. That means if you really love this project and you feel it deserves, you can pretty much select any price. I've made it that way. I was like, freedom. Even though like a lot of business videos I see online, they're like, no, No, make things exclusive, get more money, yeah. You know, for me, I'm just like pretty much I'm running a gym membership model, like the same way a person runs a gym. I'm running the same thing here with this YouTube channel, you know. But at the end of the channel, at the end of the 10,000 talks, the gym is just going to become like a public community center. Right now, it's kind of like a private membership thing. And that's the thing, a person can choose how much they value this podcast, you know. If a person values it for $1, you know, you can access the same equal membership as everyone else for $1. If you feel it's more, then, you know, you know, if you feel I'm running more than a dollarama business, oh man. Guys, just choose with your intuition, and if one is not, you know, go towards where your free will is capable. You know, I'm a person who I'm just drawing my artwork. It's you know, ultimately, if there was one sentence to take away from all these episodes, is that your moment of being is your greatest teacher, and it has been there from the beginning. Everything of these talks, I'm not some person trying to preach truth, to be honest, because you can't preach truth to a couple pound brain. You know, so in some sense, all I'm doing is, you know, brainstorming poetically. Now, so that's the thing with the membership, and of course there's going to be project supporter meetings. You know, I feel anybody who contributes to this channel, I'm pretty much going to have a group brainstorm sessions, you know, group discussion sessions, so the members get access to that, and it's like project supporter meetings happen. They will happen regularly. You know, right now I'm waiting for the members to reach a certain point, and then you know, pretty much that, okay. But, anyways, to go back to the talk, I hope that was clear, and the membership, guys, you know, if you like, you know, so, you know, this world is, I have realized it's kind of like what Galileo says, you know, you cannot teach anyone anything, you can make it realize within themselves. And the idea, the whole project is towards an advanced civilization, pretty much till the end of my days. I'm gonna try to tackle this problem and see what I can do. Anyways, back to the title. Okay, so let me kind of get to the main core of the topic. So guys, pretty much I have this theory that if 8 billion human beings start caring for 8 billion human beings and start each living as if they were in an advanced civilization in their inner realms, that means if we had every human being attempt the most advanced vision capable, and so they trusted their vision, the advanced civilization and the arrival of the advanced civilization will be equivalent to like a mountain peak, and all the human beings on the planet, as they advance their communication, they're climbing this mountain. Eventually, one starts from their inner realms. Once your inner realms are being piloted properly, then your external service begins. That means it's as if the person, the spiritual person, the New Age community was like, what is my synchronicities? You know, what are they doing? You know, why am I seeing numbers aligned every time I look at the clock? And the reason for that is that's a way the universe is saying, you are getting close to syncing your inner realm and outer realm. And when your inner realm is in some sense, it reaches its fruition, you know, then our work in the outer realms begins. That means really the purpose of life is actually a non-physical decision of perception or of inner attention. Once we have that inner attention aligned, once the pilot is stationed, once you have been, once anybody listening to me right now, if you as a person have understood your presence is not an idea. Your presence is how existence is being before we have any idea. If a person finds contentment with their presence, both in the inner realms, as if in the inner realms they're observing thoughts coming and going, in the outer realms they're observing objects coming and going. So inner realm subjects, outer realms objects. So if we can find a way to detach from the object, and if we can find a way, and when I say detach, this doesn't mean like you don't have the object or you don't see the object. I can look at a coffee cup, or I can hold a coffee cup in my hand and know that coffee cup is not a part of my hand. But if I held a coffee cup in my hand and somebody was like, put down the coffee cup, I'll be like, I don't see a coffee cup. You mean to put down my hand? As if like I'm attached to the idea. You know, then that's a problem, right? So I want to see an advanced humanity, and the riddle is, how do we get that going? And the idea is human beings are making more mistakes than they're finding solutions to the mistakes. So what does that mean? We're in a system where the airplane can way more easily shake and be turbulent. The pilots, like, you know, it's like we're inside bad weather. Civilization 1.0, it's a shaky ride. But as the pilots attend to their tasks, and in some sense the flight attendants attend to their tasks, play their part, and the passengers play their part, eventually a smooth flight will happen. You know, so many people are afraid of an airplane, you know, rather than realizing how often they can exist in such high elevations. It's like a mountain climber, you know, and, you know, two mountain climbers, let's say, have a race, and one of the mountain climbers knows that they, in some sense, like, it's impossible for them to be faster than the other mountain climber. So the mountain climber says the race is whoever gets to the top first, you know, and let's say the first mountain climber is like, all right, man, you know, I'm faster than you. And so they start, but the second mountain climber gets on a helicopter and quickly ascends through all those elevations and gets to the top, you know. You know, that means the mountain climber is using a technology to connect himself to the mountain wall, you know, or find a ridge or something, and for the other, in some sense, another technology was used to travel the same distance more quickly, you know. 8 billion human beings have to start living in such a multidimensional way that the value of their life is not just valuable to themselves, because that's the beginning. You know, that means, imagine we live, again, a life just valuable to us, you know. Eventually we'll be like, okay, for how long? Imagine in these, you know what the equivalent would be? The equivalent would be me coming into these talks and just talking about myself. I like this, I like that, I like this, rather than actually trying to be a designer and looking at a design on a table and commenting on it. 8 billion inner universes have to, through the free will and decision making, one of the most important, I don't want to say skills, I mean, sure, you can say it's a skill, but one of the most important things. That means if a parent brings a child into this world and that child does not understand its sovereignty and the sovereignty of its species, you know, and in some sense that the child has to create life, you know, it's hilarious, you know, we think only women create life. But really, our decisions are like our reality. It's as if the word decision and destiny are very close, you know, they're like cousins. So guys, in the chat section, I recommend try to sculpt a good question in the sense where it can connect to a context, because if I don't know the context of the question, I won't be able to respond to it, you know. It's as if somebody's saying, where am I? And somebody being like, okay, tell me, what do you see? You know, that's the context of the question. You know, I'm not trying to encourage a sort of blind, juggernaut, robotic, like Pacific Rim level of, you know, hard work, right? I'm talking about a sort of humanity that understands that it's walking in two dimensions. These two dimensions, one, the free will is literally acting like the creator, and behind your eyes you are like the creator of thought, poetically, you know, and in front of your eyes you are the creation of thought. How magnificent is that? That means if the mind was actually seen as a metaphor for God, for God's will, it would be equivalent where in the outer realm we are the creation. It's as if we are the passenger, right? And behind our eyes we're the pilot. And when I in these talks say, hey, whoever you are listening, pilot your inner realms, that means you can actually, through the decision making capability of the free will, shift how the story of the world is appearing as reality for you. You see, if the species fails, guys, everybody was an idiot. If the species succeeds, everybody was a genius. That is the nature of the human species. We not only share our suffering together, not only the human being has an empathy, like you see another human being that is defeated. Imagine you see your comrade in the battlefield of the space-time continuum defeated, and so a part of you is like, fuck, that could be me. You know what I mean? The empathy sets in, right? But now imagine the same begins to take place for victory. That means imagine suddenly human beings, for the first time, we exile jealousy, hatred, and greed, and humanity had no choice but to appreciate how far the eyes of its species could go. Do you know that means it's as if when a Nobel Prize winner, you know, I personally like, there's these YouTube videos online I recommend people to watch where it's Nobel laureates are in discussion. So like, for example, all the Nobel minds of 2017, they're all sitting at a table with an incredible interviewer, kind of like, you can watch these videos online. And for me, it's like the value of victory is two types of victory that can be attained: efficient survival and true vision. These are the two victories that everybody in the academic system, you know, in the educational system, is attempting to find the true vision. What is going on? What is going on? You know, and those in the outer realms, you know, for me, this is where politicians are seen as like, there's usually in politics, we have the idea of the corrupt politician, right? We're like, yo, man, these politicians are corrupt. But did you know that in some parts of the world, it cannot be just corrupt? There are enlightened politicians, right? You would go see, for example, Guru Arjan in the Sikh tradition, in Sikhism. Guru Arjan was not only a compiler of all the wisdom traditions before him, he was not only a sort of originator, a sort of solo author, a sort of communicator. He was not only an enlightened individual who had understood the power of the Naam, right? In Sikhism, the Naam is very important, and the whole Guru Nanak lineage follows the Naam. That means it's like the word is the truth, you know? But the word is not the truth, not like revelation, not the voice of man. It is as if how the universe is being, you know, God's mind in language. As if right now, you know, they would call, this is another figure in history called Rishi Vyasa. Some people would call him as if he was the incarnation of God in language. Rishi Vyasa was known for that title. And so we can have Guru Arjan was also a politician. He was also somebody who, the moment he could see something working in a better way, the universe will call to you. You know, whoever you are, if you are capable of something, you know, it's kind of like all those musicians who are working in coffee shops, or all those actresses who are waitresses, you know, and so they have this hidden dimension of talent and ability, yet that hidden dimension is literally hidden. You know, it's as if they're occupied with a different sort of realities engagement, right? And who was it? I think it was Alan Watts, where he says if you do something you love, I don't know if it was Alan Watts, but somebody who said if you do something you love, you don't have to work a day in your life. And so the issue is, what we love is not all valued physically the same, right? That means somebody could have a talent in art, but the society doesn't care about art, you know? You know, artists are very close to, being treated as enemies of a normality that doesn't like to change. The artist is the rebellion of the mind, the rebel of the mind. And what that means is it doesn't matter, like this is how you can tell someone is a true artist. It doesn't matter where you will put them, in what simulation of reality, in what world, they will instantly notice the creative dimensions of reality first. And really, the whole thing about good and evil, guys, is just creativity and destruction. What do evil people do? They destroy things. They take the world towards the absence of its ability, right? And what do good people do? As tradition has commanded, they create and they try to, in some sense, constructively move the world. So pretty much, we're like a civilization made of glass, and evil is hitting another. It's like, imagine two glass beings punching each other and both of them breaking instantly, as if violence and evil is the biggest distraction for the greatness of a species that has literally no other job in the void other than to attempt its greatness. I will tell you, every human being has, in some sense, the glow of their brain. And so this is different, right? Like, I'm not someone here denying the psychiatrist's validity in facts, because in some reason, like, how can I tell you? It's like we have, for example, police officers, we have firemen, we have paramedics. These are human beings that assist the outer realms. That means if somebody is in trouble or something, you call 911 and immediately, as if like human angels access the scene. And hopefully they're human angels, That means they understand that the psychology of the human being is as important as their physical body. That means, imagine in the future, right, especially for police officers, for example, there has to be an examination of the decency of the human character, right? That means, sure, we need to have strong-willed human beings, powerful human beings, but at the same time, we're required to have consciously powerful human beings, so that a human being that has dedicated its life to justice doesn't accidentally enhance injustice, right? So I would say that advanced communicator is literally the global servant of the inner realms of mankind. That means some human beings, they have come here to be stewards of the inner earth, and some human beings have come here to be the stewards of the outer earth. And guys, keep in mind, I've noticed that when I give these talks, an influence it has on the listeners, that I'm pretty much sharing a faster film. So if you identify with what I'm saying, your inner realms are going to speed up if you're listening to these talks. So the attitude is pretty much, we have two gears, okay, two approaches. Through stillness and silence, we observe the world of movement and noise, and through movement and noise, we observe the world of stillness and silence. Anybody who can actually be in these two states, you have pretty much fulfilled all the major ways you can exist. That means if you're a human being that is not bothered by silence, if you're a human being that is not bothered by stillness, if you're a human being that is not bothered by movement, and if you're a human being that's not bothered by noise, I mean, advanced communicator much, like, to me, there is a great work to be done. And what that means is, after children on this planet have endured through their self-simulated inner realm justification of the world, they will notice there is a world beyond their eyes, literally the world, the physical world. As Buddha says, the nature of objective phenomena is empty. Anytime you can see something and give it a purpose, or you can take away its purpose. As somebody said in history, words can in some sense, create greatness, or they can destroy greatness. You know, imagine Nikola Tesla was building the AC motor and somebody was like, hey Tesla, get a life. And Tesla was like, holy shit, maybe I should stop inventing the AC motor and go get a life. You know, and imagine if words affected the great minds, and the great minds in history and the explorers and discoverers, they didn't go further, right? So that's the thing, that the species becomes playful with all the systems that can make the thing turbulent. So what that means is, literally, it's like an airplane pilot using techniques from Aikido. In Aikido, you use the power, the force that is against you, against the own force, right? And imagine there's some incredible pilots that use messed up weather conditions to actually kind of pilot smoothly around. So, we have to find a way to get 8 billion human beings to live in a way where their lives are leading to a win-win mentality. And in this win-win mentality, a global honor for the human genetical design will arise. That means it's the era of ideological warfare. We stop getting possessed by language, and for the first time, a graceful, experiential, great human movement begins. You know, for too long, the streets of humanity have been silent, have been absent of legends. You know, I want to see, you know, a human species where every day human beings are attempting the impossible. And imagine, you know, there were eyes in the sky and they came down in the future and they were like, why did you humans attempt your greatness? And we would simply say, if we had not attempted our greatness, we would have had the greatest collective regret, as if we were all in a house party, but we did not party. You know, as if there were 8 billion creatures that could design success, but not a success that doesn't evolve, a success that whatever mistake it makes, you know, there is the civilization recycles the mistake into a solution. That means right now, for example, in the judicial system, the human being does something wrong and is kind of punished by being forced into a cave. Now, what the psychology probably in an advanced civilization, how they would acknowledge crime, is that the person who has done the crime will be bound by endless service to the opposite of the crime. You know, that means, let's say somebody has broken, for example, like, I mean, I don't know how to say it, to be honest. This isn't a one-person thing to have an opinion on a collective system, but really, I'm just seeing a future where efficiency has become a priority more than just the implementation of some activity. You know, that means the greatest justice is that we all attain our victory quicker. And what is the human victory? You're pretty much a tourist in manifestation. It doesn't get more spiritual than that. You're like a traveler, right? And so you wake up in the morning, you know, you log into, you know, the game of life as a character, and so you make free will-based decisions. The person completes poetically video game quests of survival, and then video game quests of their, like, after you have attained physiological survival, the person tries to perfect their attempt perfection of their psychological
survival, right? That means it's kind of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. After we have fed our stomachs, it's like we all go towards wanting a hug or something. So we have to build an advanced civilization where I hope a completely new model of universal income that we haven't even designed yet appears. And so human beings, they're actually not occupied by their physiological survival too much, their physical survival, because robots in the future will be doing most of the labor, right? And so the human being will just be left in some sense to use its mind more than its body. Why? Because the robotics is kind of doing the physical things better than we can, right? That means imagine being a business owner like in the year 2220, right? And you're like, hey man, why do I need employees? You know, I'll just pay one giant electricity bill and have robots who manufacture things, for example, right? So I'm saying that human jobs are going to be replaced, and eventually all humanity will come to being like, oh my God, how much did we study our non-physical dimensions? How much did we attain the skill and cultivate an awareness and wisdom of the mind's creative ability rather than the body's repetitive ability? Okay, thanks for letting me know, guys. Let me see if I could find a more calm song. All right. You know, so many people are attempting to find an answer to the question, what is the meaning of life, let's say, what is the purpose of life? And I would say before we ask that question, you know, what is the meaning of life, right, where it's starting from the inner realms, we should ask, what is the meaning of a breathing creature? I feel a lot of human decency on a collective scale can happen if we just look at how unique of a biological entity we are. Like we're like bags of energy kind of going about the day, you know. It's and there's violence. I mean, it's literally like in a world of balloons, the balloons have held swords. An incredible backup system, for example, for the collective would be how if the educational system tries by middle school giving every student a next level awareness of biology, right? I feel children are not taught how to, you know, instead of parents agonizing, eat your vegetables, kids, imagine the educational system explained the biology of the human being in such an incredible way that by middle school we had surgeon level, like, you know, like professional medical field kind of consciousness of biological topics. That means imagine by middle school in the future, all children will be doctors, you know, or imagine by middle school probably, but by primary school, they will in some sense have been explorers, you know. So from explorers, then it's as if how can I tell you, children must play, they must just appreciate their own free will and use their free will, you know. This is why they say if a parent asks their child questions, the child will come up with the answers itself, but if the parent gives the child answers, the child will question the answer of the parent. Isn't that hilarious, you know? All that parents have to do when a child does something wrong is ask the child, do you know what was wrong? Like, do you know what you did? Right? And the child will have to actually look at the world and come up with an answer. So imagine if before kids get into high school, they not only have an incredible awareness of biology, right? Imagine pretty much what it is I'm working on this, right? And I'm kind of just like a rogue explorer, you know. I'm alone at the moment, but I'm trying to, like, I have wondered about the educational system to such a degree, guys, where the idea is, when we are young, we have energy, we don't have wisdom. When we are old, we have wisdom, we don't have energy. And if we could just shift the scales, if children could know as much as the most advanced citizen on the planet, right? And the advanced citizen is literally in every field, it has its own advanced citizen. And imagine if every child in the educational system couldn't graduate if they didn't plant a tree, right? Imagine children are using paper and somebody's like, hey, this has a consequence, you know, and all the children in the educational system, if they don't plant a tree, they can't graduate. And so imagine how many trees will be planted. That means in at least you know, what in Western parts of the world, it would be like the child has to plant 12 trees before they can graduate. You know, I feel primary school should be in the forest, in nature. Children should actually be educated in nature. And then middle school, they enter society, you know. And of course, the system there's so many models to it, right? And we will never know which is the best, and we'll never know even if we never try also. But imagine you woke up one day and you realized there had been world peace. Strangely, for let's say 2 weeks, nobody on the planet had fought. There had been no violence. And for the first time all around the television, you know, in all, just global TV, it was like, you know, human beings haven't started wars, you know, all criminal activity on the planet has become 0%, and human beings are freaking out and not sure why it's like this, right? And imagine it's like that because we realize that the picture of life is so much bigger than the smaller picture we accept through our beliefs and then judge them. Right? It's as if like we are living in a civilization, but there's boxes on our head. And these boxes, sometimes you put the box on your head, sometimes you're born in a box. Right? Imagine being a child born in like Nazi Germany during the time where Hitler was giving speeches or something. You have no choice. You're born into the box of that environment. Right? So not only does the advanced communicator need to have an ability to step out of the boxes of the past, the boxes that they may put on themselves in the present, and even try to destroy the boxes of the future or prevent the boxes of the future to even go on the heads of, like, you know, a species that it took 4.5 billion years to attempt the impossible. You know, it's as if we are only alive to attempt the impossible. Evolution is the impossible. Evolution, and just take this in. We're an intelligence that is adjusting to its environment to survive. That means before we even have language and thought, we were experts in just sticking around in the space-time continuum, you know? You know, I feel every moment has two types of access points, right? A person can access the inferior rhythms of the moment or the superior rhythms. And the superior rhythms, believe it or not, as, you know, cloudy, as fluffy as it may sound, love is a liquid state of consciousness where through the equality of mutual coexistence and freedom to co-experience, the ultimate is a thing. So what I mean by that is that we have to, like I'm going to say it's going to be okay for people to, let's say, hate each other in the future, but you got to love your species. That's all I'm saying. You know, whoever you are, you could be an evil person, good person. Let that be one level, one layer of Photoshop where reality is happening. On the other layer, regardless of good and bad, human species has to retaliate against extinction. That's it. That is the greatest game to play. That means children in the educational system, you know, in the future, the teachers will be like, all of you are warriors, whether you know it or not. You know, all conscious human intelligence roaming the surface of this rock, it's as if you are as responsible as you see the world. You know, a person who hates, that's like the lazy approach. You know, hatred is easier than love. In an instant, someone can hate something, right? But if someone cultivates love through like long-term, you know, experiences and trust, and if that trust is broken, it's as if the love is no longer there, right? That's how, like in modern culture, they treat it. I just want to say that imagine there was a civilization, an advanced civilization, that everybody, first of all, has blind spots. Even me talking right now, there's things that I don't know. You know, simply said, I've never even thought of to know. You know, that means everybody has blind spots. And so if everybody has blind spots, our blind spots are the same collective unconscious. So imagine an advanced civilization where if somebody made a mistake, there would be 8 billion other human beings to take care of your blind spot. And so imagine a collective force was taking care of blind spot, blind spot, blind spot. So the advanced civilization will be like literally a wave of help. Right? But a help that is not considering the inferior being, is considering the superior being. Because why not? It's the same energetic thing, right? A person can be like, I am weak. Sure, that took a certain amount of energy for inner realm projection. Now imagine a person says, I am strong. It takes the same. Do you know? That means the most craziest thing in life is when we realize in every moment that we made a decision, we could have made another decision in that moment, right? So the freedom is all around us. You know, nobody is a fool when everything is changing. You can't even know how foolish you are in a changing world. You know, that's the challenge, that's the hardship. The idea is that there is only ignorance. That means those who see what's going on and those who don't. There is no stupid or smart people. Because nature is an event superior to all of us. You know, that means extraterrestrials could come down in the future and be like, you human beings are idiots. And we'll be like, hey man, we're doing our best, okay? You know? And, you know, we can be even ignorant and imagine an extraterrestrial species comes down and we'll be like, hey, you guys have form. You're not that advanced. You know, an extraterrestrial species is like, excuse me? The idea is that our inner realms provide a fast-forwarded version of life before it happens. This talk that I'm giving in my inner realms are moving faster than my voice. And because they're moving faster than my voice, the perception is there before so let's like think of it as if I say the word, let's say I want to say the sentence like Eve and Isaac both liked apples, you know. So imagine I say that statement, you know. The moment I say Eve, my attention's already on Isaac. The moment Isaac Newton, for example, the moment my attention's on Isaac Newton, it's like literally step ahead, step ahead, step ahead. Why? Because it's just like driving, ladies and gentlemen. Being a human being is just like driving a vehicle, right? But the issue is that the driver within is not the biology. And this is why it's important that we don't just say we have minds, and when we as human beings go to see what are we talking about when we say everybody has a mind, you know, we see that it is they are conscious that they are conscious. Manly P. Hall said one of the most incredible sentences I've ever heard in this life. He said, not a lot of people, I think it was something in these lines, he said the idea was that not a lot of people are aware that they are being aware. Right? And that's why they are, it's like the unconscious physical animal survival instinct is literally taking them for a ride rather than their free will to become an initiate in the universal activity. Right? That means it's like, do you want to live as a savage animal in this life, or do we want to live as an advanced human? Right? And I'm pretty sure everybody knows the answer to that. Right? If we live as an animal, we go backwards in our history. We de-evolve. If we live as, believe it or not, as the transcended animal, that means I'm not saying we're not an animal. Anybody can put their palms on the ground and notice evolution, you know. But it's all about strategy, you know. And this is why generals in history were known to be, by some, to have a demonic side. Not that the general was a demon or an angel. The general understood that beyond chaos and order, the moment makes the decision of its victory. So, for example, Sun Tzu in The Art of War, he was this next level general, and he says the general that abides with heaven first. That means, imagine it's a multidimensional war, and then there's another dimension of karmic law. Right? And so the general that's abiding with karmic law, like the general that's not attacking first, has better karma. You know? Those who attack, they don't understand. They actually project an archetypal echo of themselves. Right? That means it's as if there's karma and then there's evil. So if we experience evil, that means we started at some point in the space-time continuum. The multidimensional witness accepted, in some sense, a sort of manifestation, right? And in the Vedas, guys, they have such an incredible way of talking about karma and memory. Because your karma suggests the geometry of your memory. The outline of your memory is based on the decisions a person makes. If a person makes a bad decision, let's say a savage thing, let's say a human being decides to be a violent animal, right? The moment they make that decision, they're going to go into a cycle of their memory is going to be like, what do I do now? I experienced a version of myself where I was a violent animal. It's the same thing with guilt, right? For example, with the notion of morality, where the person, if somebody commits a crime, they literally have watched someone, their own body, commit a crime, right? So that will echo in the consciousness, as if the mind's like, buddy, you did something wrong, so what do you want me to do? You created that memory for yourself, right? So the way is that the person has to start living where they are creating more healthier and collective individual win-win scenarios. That means imagine an individual's victory was the whole species' victory. That way you would be happy. You'll be like, nice, somebody did something and it helped everyone else. Great. Now imagine 8 billion people were doing this all the time, and not only it was second nature had become first nature, in some sense our speed increases, right? Because that's the whole point of consciousness, you know? To a pilot or a NASCAR driver, you're like, what's the purpose of life? And they'll be like, to go faster.
You know, there's a type of learning where the student is trying to be the teacher, and that is disgusting. You know? I mean, that's really harsh. I shouldn't say that. You know, let me tell you why I'm saying that. There's a type of learning where the world has already been discovered and you're being taught what's already been discovered. Then there's a type of learning where you learn by actually entering unknown states. That means anytime your moment is more than 50% unknown, you're learning. You know? A person who has more questions accumulates a way more memory, greater memory archive of experiential significance in language. Right? That means our experiences are wielding sound with the content of our experience, with the inner image. That means literally it's like meaning, the concept of meaning is literally a multidimensional idea. And the Buddha was so smart. Like, people don't understand how smart the Buddha was. And when I say smart, I mean he saw something so ahead that it's as if when I read the story of Buddha, I got goosebumps on like time. It's like the history is filled with time travel, you know? The Buddha concluded all of life and its activities as suffering. And once he managed to find the giant problem that covers all problems, then he had to find one answer. And this is why the concept of enlightenment is literally like the edge of the simulation, and whoever you are, do you care for the mystery of your eyes? Because the society civilization 1.0 will try as hard as it can to get rid of your unknown variables. There are some teachers that try to lock down the world of the student and be like, this is it, don't you go on thinking something else, kid. You know? And then there are teachers who are like, hey kids, we don't know anything, think anything else other than what we have thought. And that's an educational system that will literally be attempting light speed. You know, you are the storyteller of your own life, and your memories and your intelligence is literally like how it's happening. You know, imagine a warrior in battle. Or imagine the general archetype, and the general in battle has to sacrifice like the front lines of the army to defend the king. Right? But the general wants to make the greatest amount of efficiency possible with the least amount of sacrifice. Right? So the idea is that it's like one strategy is, no, we should be victorious, and there's no such, like, we shouldn't care about failure, you know? So whether the person's running a business, whether the person's doing any project, they're like victory, like a victory obsession. Or the person can be like, all right, fear is a possibility. Let's say fear, the worst case scenario happens. I start my perception from trying to reduce the model of the system, from relating more. It's as if once you accept failure, you can't fail anymore. Once you accept the simplest and the lowest form of yourself, then there's nothing that can bother you. Do you know? That means when a person feels worthless, make that a conscious checkpoint, you know, and let emptiness be as much of an inspiration to bring something new as much as whatever there is in the space that can be taught. All right. Let me see how I can end this episode. When the collective blind spot is cared for. If I care for my own blind spot, and I manage to take care of that blind spot and make it, like, bring it into make the unconscious conscious in a Jungian fashion, one person has been victorious. That means if I just help myself, only I win, and I'm a temporary being. That means if I only help myself, it's as if I didn't exist in the world. Do you know?
This is the sadness of the greed of power. You know, all those powerful elites are actually finding themselves in ivory towers, but ivory towers in accordance to karmic decision making. Some philosophers, they have also the karma of isolation, and they in some sense find themselves in ivory towers, but the philosopher is in it, has access to the staircase. You know, in life, because of cause and effect, the third law in both science and the karmic law in religion, the cause is why the effect is here. If I am right now in 2021 giving a podcast, is because something in this space-time continuum, in the way I had caused my intelligence or had accepted its symbiosis, because, you know, if somebody asks me, Mr. Within, do you believe in a soul? I'll probably, like, in my inner realms, laugh very loudly. But and tell you that in accordance to my personal experiences, I feel the human idea is the tip of the iceberg of an incredibly unknown intelligence. Because it's the tip of the iceberg, I don't get attached to past lives of the tip of the iceberg, and I don't get attached to future lives of the tip of the iceberg, you know. But I acknowledge that the universe is intelligent. Because the universe is alive, I don't have too many opinions on really how I am alive. You know, I mean, I try to map the inner realms, but like, try to create blueprints for them, but like, ultimately, I know that the unknown is just unknown. Whatever I say, whatever we human beings do, there's going to be the unknown till the end of time, you know? Even time is like, I don't know, guys. So when a species doesn't fear the unknown, it's not like saying a person doesn't fear death anymore just because they don't fear the unknown. It means they have cared to at least understand their fear rather than just go through the fight or flight reflex, you know, of our survival instinct. So you see, we're a binary biological system, but the intelligence that is navigating, piloting this binary intelligence, it's attributeless behind your eyes. In front of your eyes, it's filled with attributes. Is this on mute? No, okay. We are an idea right now, an idea in development. That's the ethos of civilization. You know, we are a question to be answered. Now, the strange thing is that answers, they make the world smaller, they make the world more into a photograph, and questions make the world into a film. And so a civilization that is fighting for answers has gotten the wrong picture, oblivious of the greater ways that it can exist. You know, and all that can be said is, dear humanity, what if everything could be everything in another way? And when will we as human beings be like, all right, for how long are we going to ignore the inner realms? Every person is living two lives, an inner life and an outer life, right? And if we care for the collective blind spot, that means in the future, if we have the advanced civilization will be as if behind our eyes we are one humanity. But in front of our eyes, we are the characters in the simulations that we, you know, roam in, right? You know, it's as if the person, imagine, prayed to speak to God, and suddenly God came to speak to them. And the person's like, no way, am I really talking to God right now? And God's like, yeah. And so the person's like, this is hypothetical, guys, a thought experiment, just entertain it. So the person says, God, why are we all here? Like, why are you doing this? Why did you create this whole thing? And why did you create suffering? Like, what's the point of that? Couldn't the universe have been created where there was no suffering? And imagine God says, you're the first, existential critic, the first divine art critic. You see, nature, its logic is bound to how we simulate it and how our eyes accept its meaning. So everybody actually is implementing a different system of logic, even though logic in the outer realms is like a universal. Is like a universal system, because what it is like the outer realms are not shifted by emotions. That means a person can have like right now there's a coffee cup in front of me. I can be like, I hate this coffee cup, or I could be like, I love this coffee cup, right? But the coffee cup doesn't care, right? And this is the whole thing about a system of logic in being incapable to have even an additional dimension to consider morality as a sort of emotional sensitivity of a biological creature that made noise and then made that noise into the world. That means I will tell you the difference between an advanced civilization and a civilization that is not advanced is literally if those people that wake up in the morning in the civilization, the members of civilization, for they just in some sense you see its emptiness holding color and shape and space. And so it's as if all that reality can be is like you find yourself in a room with stuff already in it, and the stuff is intelligently moving, and we can't tell if the intelligence is beyond the room or not. To me, we have to care to humanize everyone, right? That means it's like we have to care for a world where every part of it knows that it's gonna die. That means everybody is a temporary being. The least we can do is try to uphold an honorable, vision of the human being. That means imagine there's someone in society in the future. Let's say, pressure, the social pressure gets to such a degree. Like I'll tell you this personally. It's kind of a bit intense, but I was in an apartment where somebody had jumped from the balcony of the apartment, right? And it was such a messed up thing because a couple of weeks before somebody else had done the same thing in another building nearby, right? And so I had this feeling like, what kind of civilization are we living in? What kind of ways are human beings looking at the world that the pressures, that means rather than realizing the opportunity, it's as if the let me tell you this, it's like when a person can get bored of their suffering, that's when intelligence speeds up. Don Fisher says we are all in the chat section, we're all trying to figure it out. That's learning. We should always be learning. Angela says your background dogs are making my dogs go crazy barking. Yeah, guys, I can't control like the sounds in the world, I'm not that level of a Jedi yet where I can use the Force to stop sound from entering the podcast. Guys, Daniel in the chat section says something interesting. He says it's like life's a mystery, then a cage, then a mystery. And the faster I can see the cage, the faster I can catch up. Or you only see the cage till you can imagine out of it, but I'm stuck so often in artist's block that it's just the cage. Okay. So interesting point. This is actually a global problem. There's many creative individuals who it's about, let's say, managing the speed of your interrupts. So here is how you surpass any sort of writer's block. You become selfless and preferenceless, and you watch. You become an audience of the moment, and eventually you will see, the new idea. It's the preference for a certain outcome that occupies the inner antenna space where a new idea can be found. This isn't on mute, is it? So that's the key thing, guys. Everybody is a different DNA. It's not like we're all like a product from the same company and it has the same user manual. I mean, it's like we are all products of nature, right? But I'm telling you, it's as if every person is an instrument, and you gotta master your own instrument, or how, what's his name? An incredible human being by the name of Ludwig van Beethoven. He says, don't just practice your art, but force your way into its secrets, for it and knowledge can raise man to the divine. What Beethoven is saying is like, don't just care for an artistic result. Don't try to look for the perfect artwork. Just like your art is the field you choose. Literally, what part of reality you're choosing to zoom in on to intelligently engage, right? So let's say if you are, for example, an artist, a painter, right, and you don't know what to paint, and you're like, shit, I want to paint something, but I don't know what to paint. Instead of being a painter, the painter's like, okay, I am in the like, just like martial arts, in the arts of let's say in the painting arts, right? So what is the greatest thing that a painter can draw? And so instead of, you have to ask yourself questions so new contexts for reality appear. Do you see? So what I'm trying to say is like, I'm not, when I give these talks, you know what it was? Like, it's kind of like, I don't care really how the talk ends up. I care how I drew the painting when I gave the talk, right? So for me, it's no longer an outcome-based kind of inspiration. It's every moment trying to see what is the most best way you can do it, pretty much, right? It doesn't matter if you're giving a podcast or drinking a cup of coffee. It's like you attempt the best, greatest state of consciousness known to man. Imagine we built the most advanced and great civilizations, and again, extraterrestrials from the future come and they're like, how'd you guys do it? And we'll be like, it was an accident. We don't know actually how we did it. And the aliens will be like, get out of here. And we'll be like, no, you get out of here. The best part of life is that if you were to think of yourself as a designer, there is endless designs. That means if you just go for a walk outside, you'll see enough geometry, to build like a completely new idea from. It's just invention, guys. Invention is literally, the caveman finding a rock or something, or let's say a branch got electrocuted and caught on fire, and the caveman took that branch and threw it on like a bush, and the whole bush got on fire, and all the cavemen took parts of the bush and threw it on other bushes, and eventually there was enough fire for the creature to have some sort of ability to preserve it. See, guys, I'm telling you this. Imagine you are a sphere of space, and you can select what imagery, what archetype, what ideological Iron Man suit you wear, right? If you choose to wear the Iron Man suit of someone who has already failed, it's kind of like there's no point of wearing that Iron Man suit. And I'll tell you something fascinating, guys. Did you know a lot of, and I'm going to say it, a lot of perverted psychology in society is a result of seeing the small picture and not the big picture? Do you know that means the intellect is actually, like, that's the cool thing about at least knowledge and education. It has nothing to do with the person's past, in the sense that it's like the content is just content. It's as if when a person watches a film, at the end they don't say the film was, feminine or masculine. You know what I mean? The psychology is not limited. Duality hasn't destroyed us yet. So the greatest inspiration in life is try to see as far as possible. Then the incredible achievements will just be simple. Why? Because in your inner realms, no incredibility is enough. You know what I mean? That means whatever. Let's say right now the most advanced alien came on Earth and showed us its greatness, and we were like, wow, that's pretty great, but is there someone greater than you? And the alien would be like, get offended or something, Imagine aliens landed in the future on the planet Earth, and we had diplomatic relationships. At some point, the human leaders would be like, all right, you guys aren't gonna, kind of indirectly invade us, right? And the aliens are like, no, we've transcended human ownership as matter, so don't worry about it. You know what I mean? The day the species realizes we're not subjects in the void, that is the first wave of the true humanity. It's a legend, the legend of of the advanced civilization. Like the legend of the castle in the sky was the past mythos of the idea of the advanced civilization. That means anybody who came, I don't know who it was exactly, but the person on this earth that brought the concept of the legend of the castle in the sky manifested literally an advanced civilization archetype. That means I'm talking about the castle in the sky in the future. The advanced civilization is a civilization that for the first time was not afraid of infinity and the infinite unknown, and attempted to use its temporary consciousness to understand eternity. Anyways, guys, thanks for listening. Sometimes I'm fascinated that there is even an audience. And in the subtitle, when I say all eyes on all eyes, that just means we unite through our species as being the common denominator. That means if there is world peace, it has to do with the global archetype, And so people, it hasn't happened yet, but I'm sure it's going to happen probably in the next 10 to 30 years. We're going to see human beings suddenly start to talk about the things in life, even politicians, even celebrities, even whatever, in a universal context, as if where are we in the universe and what are we doing, regardless of whatever we're doing, And so it's as if an advanced civilization is around the corner if we choose to consciously turn our gaze to just a new model of reality. And imagine you're a person, you're not afraid of the void. You're like, okay, the void is being the void. It's nothing. Nothing is nothing. It's like, how can we even be afraid of nothing? There's no content for there to be afraid of. There's nothing there to be afraid of, So nothing can't be feared. It's just confusing, And we look at something, and so everybody is existing as an individual biological phenomena, and the mind can experience itself as the whole moment, so a collective, non-biological phenomenon.
And so, guys, just to end this off with this sentence, I'll say, do we deserve an advanced civilization? And if the answer to that question, is no, then it's as if like the question was never there. But if the answer is yes, we deserve an advanced civilization, then the next question would be, what kind of method of developing an advanced civilization would deserve? That means it's as if success is the end. If we in modern times are saying success is the end result of a journey. Let's say an Olympic athlete that gets the golden medal. Imagine there is a success that has there's a success threshold, then so there's a success that never ends, which is a dynamic state, and there's a success that is just short-lived, and then comes next success, next success, next success. Eventually the person's like, oh my god, is the meaning of life just to be successful to myself as the world deteriorates in its clumsiness to care for its better self, better collective self? So I'm saying, live a life wherever you are where it's so efficient that it's a win-win. Your individual life, like I saw it in the future, I talked about this actually years ago, where I said everybody's gonna have a great work portfolio. What does that mean? That means every person's physical body is doing some sort of work, like the heart is working non-stop, to be honest, That's why we associate love with the heart, because it's such a hard work. What I'm saying is, like, it's as if there's a value to our physical results in life, and there's a value to our non-physical results. Imagine you're someone who's gone into a system and you're the first person in that system. You can come and write a review, and that will enlighten everybody else who's going to go into that system, for example. Advanced civilization. It's the sum totality of all of our decisions. And the idea is to make a great decision, to make a series of great decisions as a species, and then see what's going to happen. And then update, make another series of great decisions, as if the human collective after, let's say the day after world peace, imagine world peace had been attained. Like, imagine we're like, no way, everybody can walk in the world as if it's their living room. Imagine that would be world peace, where the world becomes our living room, literally, and we will have that sort of comfort in being alive in the world. In front of our eyes, invention is the greatest ideal, universal ideal. It's as if inventing an object, like I invented something, the idea of, but I haven't patented or anything. Anybody who cares to make this a reality, you can take this idea forth. I envision, just like how back in the day they had swords, in art schools, people are going to wear swords, but these swords are going to actually be paper. Of paper, where the artist can go anywhere, put the sword container down, and it's literally a parchment of paper, that extends from the sword, and they can just write anywhere, right? So it's as if a sword notebook. Like I envision something like that, and that's like a physical object of a level of invention. Then there's the invention of a multidimensional system with so many unknown variables, and everyday new types of human beings are being born, right? And even though the species is against the idea of a surveillance state, though our brains are designed to use information. That means the more information we have, the more we know, right? And everything has a good and bad side in a dualistic system, but in an advanced multidimensional civilization, it would literally be not just like a line where one point is good, the other point is bad. It would be like a plus sign.
right? Where there would be the unknown and the known. And so there would be the known good and the known bad, the unknown good and the unknown bad, and the variations of how they, in some sense, there's a, it's as if everybody has to be inspired somehow, right? Even the word inspiration is like it's like the spirit in the moment, you know what I mean? It's like what's causing the moment to move. There's no such thing as even creativity. It's just literally the consciousness moves in a new way. It sees something new, and if it cares, it shares, and people are like, oh my God, that's super great. But really what it is exploration, that means creative people are just people who have explored their mind more. Dawn in the chat section says, only one thing I pondered. I feel it's more difficult to hate for the pain that comes with it is worse to handle than the calmness of love. However, it is more difficult to accept to accept love. Yeah, this is love is one of those things in life where when Salvador Dali said, don't fear perfection, you'll never reach it. There is that thing with love that it's a person can choose to in their personal dimensions experience love, but if in the outer dimensions it is a battlefield, it's like how much can we have love in the battlefield, right? I gave a talk called Defending the Lovers of the Realm. I think that was the title. And so I had this mentality that those who are in love, they are in an inner realm event, right? But the outer realm event has to update. So what's the point of loving a world that is unupdated? So in some sense, in the outer realms, love is not what's gonna build an advanced civilization. That's why I said designers are the saviors of humanity, because they are geometrical. They're engaging reality on the geometrical information level, right? In the inner realms of preserving the idea of what it means to be a human being, that's when love has a huge role in civilization, right? To keep us human. It's like love is a force field that keeps us humanized, right? The moment the person doesn't love, what happens? They become like an animal, and if they go even beyond that animalistic cruelty, they become a demon, right? And if they go beyond that, the world is like, okay, that's too much, man. It's as if somebody making too much noise in the theater where everybody's looking at the pure screen of consciousness. It's like, they will kick out the disturbance, right? That's just nature, because nature is like a universal body that wants to be healthy, right? The universe wants to be healthy regardless of human decision making, right? The pilot analogy, I think, is the best archetype. There is no emotion in the sense that the pilot is like, all right, my eyes have opened and I'm piloting through the day. And when I look at the bigger picture of life, I'm piloting through how would I say it? I'm piloting through the space-time emptiness. That means there's a version of me right now that is acknowledging civilization as the primary information, right? Then there's a sort of version of me, and I think everybody has this dimension in them, right? Where it's as if you and the universe and you're alone. That means like I can be with as many people, but the loneliness I feel in the universal vastness of the cosmos, it's as if nothing can resolve it, change that. You see, it's as if that's the fearlessness of the psychology when it understands that the film will end one day.
It's as if the question is first, who are we breathing for? Then the question becomes, what are we breathing for? Then the question becomes, does the breath need to be anything? And that's the most simplistic level of life. That means any human being that fails in anything in life, you can ultimately return to your first home, which is your simplest nature. Seldom this is said, humility is a state where your inner realms move incredibly fast. Why? Because there's more selflessness than selfishness. That means the selfless get to enter heaven first, or they become the heaven, the living heaven. That means that would be a totally next level conversation between theologians. Where is heaven, guys? Like, where is earth even? Are we all inside God's mind right now? And imagine theologians are like, Dawn in the chat section says, sometimes I seek that loneliness. Is that weird? I think there is no normal or weird in a changing world. It's just that at some point the intelligence will be like, what am I doing with my perception, right? Every person will eventually, I'm pretty sure even like everybody's experienced this and their intelligence responds to it instantly, but like, it's as if at some point you're like, all that I'm seeing, what does it have to do with me? And what does the idea of the self have to do with all the idea of everything else that is going on, right? Eventually the mind will ponder and come to that level of questioning. And so when it comes to what should the self do in the world, or for the world, or as the world, and what should the world do for the self, as the self or in the self. And the idea is that nature is already alive and living. That means nature is being true already. Man, when he forgets his natural rhythm, the eyes of his selfless consciousness at the beginning of his life, this is why they say children go to heaven, because children don't have egos yet. They're not even old enough to have an idea of being a person to be good or bad. People should not fear. It's as if 4 dimensions of the world, guys. Emptiness. That emptiness is like, you got to make your peace with it. And that's why Zen, the koans, that's why in just ancient mystical thought, some, militant atheists are like, why is it paradoxical? But it has to be, right? Because it was trying to see beyond the language. And in order to see beyond the language, we can't just be convinced by one side of the language, That means as long as there's the archetype of a good and bad person, there will be good and bad till the end of time. Only when the good and bad person both realize they're just human beings and their decisions are what is good and bad, right? That means the person's nature is like same way an object doesn't, just like when you look at a coffee cup, it's not a good or bad coffee cup, it's not a good or evil coffee cup. Right? So it's the same way the person can look at their own biological body and be like, okay, I'm not a good and evil person, right? I am, though, a moment of sensory reception, and this moment of sensory reception is choosing how to first the context that's accessible, then being a concept in it, right? It's as if we look around the room, then we move in it, Someone in the chat section asked if this is a fake picture or not. I'll tell you, it depends when you're looking at this picture. If you're looking at this picture from the past, it's fake. If you're looking at this picture from the present, it could be fake or it could be real. Let's say if you're looking at it from the present, it's fake. But let's say if you're looking at it from the future, you can say nanotechnology became so advanced that we could create android AI penguins, right? Can you imagine in the future, like the police officers of the robotic future, for example, hypothetically speaking, a parallel possibility of reality,
Let's say in the future, the robots, like the robot police force, is a bunch of penguins that are running, right? So imagine penguins are actually like policemen in the future. And then we look at this penguin, and the penguin is actually an AI that just transforms into like a, next level robot if things get serious, you know what I mean? That means in the outer realms, we're trying to preserve the gentle. In the inner realms, of course, we are, believe it or not, in a battlefield. Lorna in the chat section says something incredible. When the loneliness isn't lonely anymore, you've reached a new plateau. Exactly. Because loneliness is lonely for who? That means, let's say somebody right now on the planet is like, I'm suffering. Now the next question should be, who is suffering? Who is this who that is suffering in this world? Right? When the world is one event of nature. Right? And so, an advanced civilization, the collective blind spots is pretty much if we can create a civilization that responds to these 4 dimensions of perception. A civilization that honors emptiness. And some people will be like, Mr. Within, how can we honor emptiness? What are we honoring? And I'll keep that for another talk, but you can honor emptiness. And let's say that a person, after honoring emptiness, they have honored the singularity, the union of intelligence. You have honored everything. That means first we're like, okay, nothing, and we got over our nihilistic phase, and then we went to our solipsistic phase in our psychology. After we have acknowledged the singular, the dual will be left. The dual is left for the designers. The advanced communicators are pretty much the main force of human beings that are actually, you know what it is, like the advanced communicators, if this whole existence was a plane of existence, the advanced communicators are like the flight attendants that are here to help the duality of the passengers. That means if the passenger wants apple juice or orange juice, do you know what I mean? That's what the advanced communicators are, right? Now the pilots of consciousness are those human beings where they're also advanced communicators, but they're advanced communicators that are moving the outer realm. That means the general is fighting in the battlefield, and let's say the righteous noblemen in the court are fighting for, like, what can the minds of the nations do? And finally, guys, the infinite archetype. That means anytime you see a human being attempting an infinite level of something, whether it's a skill or whatever, that is literally a future. Do you know? Infinity is like the scent of a time traveler. Oh man. I'm pretty sure the day hasn't come, hopefully it won't come anytime soon, but it's like one day people are going to be like, philosophy's out of control, man. And we'll realize the questions of life open way more worlds than a singular answer can. And it's incredible. It's as if, like, what do you do if you suddenly teleported into a world, or let's say somebody teleported into a world and they were holding a sword and a shield and they were in a battlefield. Like, what do you do if you suddenly teleported into that kind of reality? Let's say in the future, cyberspace, they're going to access this, but let's say, what would you do if you did that, right? You would be like, I have no choice. There's a sword in my hand, there's a shield, there's like probabilities of non-existence around me, So in some sense, the person engages reality and uses it. And now I'm like, we are waking up on Earth as human beings, and the people are like, what do we do in reality? You use whatever you are, because we are temporary. If we serve ourselves, we only get to see the victory. If we serve the realm, the victory of everyone will be our greatest victory. That means, imagine a person was so advanced in their inner realms. They're like, okay, I've piloted everywhere in the inner realms. What's left? The outer realms. That means this is the reality. It's not that words inspire action. It's the urgency of the great breathing opportunity. And so that's why love is rare, because atoms have become individuals. An object became a subject to itself, and the subject is connecting with other subjects. And the moments of experience are becoming singular. So in some sense, like, it's like you can say love is the most advanced thing that a species on Earth did, when it came to the inner realms, right? And design and geometry was the most advanced thing it does in the outer realms. This is why I had a close friend years ago. I'm no longer in touch with him, but he was so into conspiracy, and every time we would chat, it's like I had this spiritual mentality where I would talk deep, and he had this mentality of like not trusting anything in the world because it was all like a conspiracy, right? And kind of like, and so after some point you're like, okay, when do the bedtime stories end, and when do we actually look at what's going on to update? And we have to realize, to be a human, to do something new is way more greater than the past just repeating. That means that's the value of the future generations. That means some people are like, no way, overpopulation, I don't like this. But some people are like, no way, more human brains that can solve problems of a universal nature. It's as if it's like overpopulation is a sign that all these creatures are here to do something. So we have to start a project that is 8 billion plus requirement of assistance, Dawn says, where is that blind spot so people stop seeking control and destruction? You know what that blind spot is? The absence of one's instantaneous universalism. You're a universal being, but we're telling ourselves stories that are in half spheres on the surface of the earth, There was this Simpsons episode where they were all inside this glass, half of a glass sphere, a town was stuck in that, right? And believe it or not, that's what's going on, when it comes to ideology living instead of novelty innovating. Pretty much either the past does what it wants, or the future enters the room. The ultimate blind spot is to realize that unless the collective is efficient, individual efficiency is meaningless. So many people say the meaning of life is just to live for the self, for yourself only. That means you're here for a little while. Who cares what happens to this earth? The edge of the universe universe is endless. Why should we even do anything if we're a multidimensional being? The person can live in their mind thinking they're a loving human being, but actually having not cared for the outer realms. It's as if it's so easy to be a good person behind your eyes, but in front of it, that means there has to be the actions, the manifestation of the inner realm properly to the outer realm, right? So I am seeing literally 8 billion human beings, and because I'm a human being and I look at the earth, I see a universe. I know that 8 billion other human beings are also looking at the world and seeing their own earths. So there's literally one outer earth and 8 billion inner earths. Okay, and in each inner earth, every person's DNA is like an antenna that provides them with a unique access to how sensory perception is translating through the brain into a character in a story, which the character is now wondering why it's in the story. Right? And so this is where the freedom of realizing your intelligence, that means, let's say you are using let's say you are driving a manual car and you press on the gas pedal non-stop, but when the car gets to ready to go to the second gear, you don't change it from the first gear it was, and the engine begins making a ridiculous noise, and the person's like, oh my god, what's going on, not realizing that the engine was not adjusted to the pressure input into it. So it's the same where I would say it's as if like the type of human being we find in civilization is like one gear, but the possibility in civilization, you could put your foot on the gas pedal and experience the higher levels, right? And even though Gandhi says there's more to life than increasing its speed, it's totally true. But civilization is just something that whether we like it or not, we're in, right? So the physical world has to update, and literally imagine if political leaders, heard a lecture on art and they all decided to make all nations incredibly beautiful. That means the idea, oh man, sometimes in my inner realms, I see future civilizations that I'm like, it doesn't matter how much we succeed if there's more dimensions to life. So we have to have a vision that is seeking the collective success. The blind spot is also within, right? The issue is people are treating themselves as a passenger in the world, as if the world is moving them. And when the world moves them, they have no room to implement the free will, right? So the free will is like the mind being faster than the body. So imagine 8 billion minds become so fast that eventually they will experience all bodies, right? So love is a symptom of a future that is collective before it is individual. Anyways, guys, thanks for listening. I hope this episode was helpful. Namaste.